So like Michol said, I was her boss at one point in another life. And when she came to interview, I said, who is this spunky little girl here? I like her. Let's get her on board. And she considered me a mentor, but quite honestly, seeing her grow, she's definitely inspired me as well. So we had that life in pharmacy. But I'm also a licensed real estate agent in the state of Maryland. So I pass my cards out. If anybody's interested to buy, sell, or invest real estate in Maryland, give me a call. I also own a construction company, Dame Property Solutions, stands for my children's initials, their names. So, but I'm honored to be the MC for today, and I just wanted to formally introduce Michol up to this podium to talk. So I'm especially honored to introduce our next speaker, and she's the reason we're all here due to becoming a victim of fraudsters stealing her information to make counterfeit stamps and conduct fraudulent notarizations. She's intentionally known, but depending on who you're talking to, unfortunately, it might not be in a good way. Michol is the powerhouse behind Notary Training Network. She wears many hats: facilitator, planner, organizer, visionary genius, marketing manager, content creator, curator extraordinaire, and mom. Her passion for educating and empowering notaries has led her to train over 500 professionals with a conversational teaching style that everyone loves. Although she's not big on fancy titles, she's on a mission to bring value and integrity to notary professionals by creating a sense of community. She's the driving force behind this remarkable event. She's been organizing notary training events for almost a decade. The business started as local meetups for notaries in the Baltimore area back in 2015. Coincidentally, Maryland laws changed in 2021 to mandate notary education in July of 2022, and Notary Training Network became the first in the state approved notary training course provider, and it's all thanks to her incredible dedication to advocating for Maryland notaries as she leads with passion, knowledge, and heart. Be sure to stick around after the keynote session, as we'll be having an evening reception to acknowledge and celebrate her receiving the Best of Baltimore for Notary Public 2023 award. She'll be presenting a powerful session on the importance of record keeping. Please give a warm welcome and round of applause for our next speaker and your conference host, Michol Bobb.
It feels so good to be alive.
So, can y'all hear me? Am I good with the sound? Okay. Hey, everybody. Are y'all having a good time? Was the food good? Was the drinks good? Okay. All right. So, today we're going to talk about records worth keeping. Like she mentioned, the reason why we're here today is because, first, let me give the disclaimer. I am aware that my information is on the black market. So check your credit reports. Make sure you have those alerts turned on so you can get a notification if your information is on the black market. Now, that may or may not have anything to do with what I'm getting ready to talk about, but I wanted to put that out there. If your information is on the black market, just be aware and set up preventive extra security measures for your logins and stuff like that, because it's really honestly nothing you can't do about it. So I'm going to share a few stories today. The first story is, and Marlene said intentionally, she was supposed to say internationally, because I like to travel too, okay? So, way back yonder, about 7 or so years ago, back in 2017, I do like to travel, and I have been to Canada. However, I got a call from a bank manager in Canada at the Bank of Montreal. I had to look it up because I thought it was a fake bank. I didn't know it was a real bank. I thought it was a scam. And she said, well, your information is on this paper, something to do with a handwritten request for some type of refund that got notarized. How they got my information? I don't know. They said that it had my personal information, my stamp, my signature, my phone number, and my home address. Because if you don't know, your information as a notary public is public information. So we incorporate talking about security in my class if you come to my Intro to Notary Practice class. So I let you know those things. So if you have any issues, crazy stalker ex-boyfriends or girlfriends that you want to try to hide from, you may not want your information publicly displayed. So find out when you're putting in your applications if the state is going to be displaying your information, and you want to get alternative information to use before you actually put your application in. Scenario number 2. Why are we here? My information was stolen and used to make a counterfeit notary stamp that was on financial aid documents at Cecil Community College. I did actually invite them to come out here to this event today, but they didn't want to come. That's their loss. So this is what that looks like. This right here is not my notary stamp. This is in Baltimore County. I'm in Baltimore City. For those of you that don't come to Baltimore, Baltimore County and Baltimore City is 2 different jurisdictions. After I became a teacher for notaries, I had to learn that I had to let people know that because people didn't know. But some things that you notice on here, if you're ever notarizing documents or reviewing notarized documents, some inconsistencies, they have stuff pre-filled. You should never be doing this because this is considered altering a document. They have it written here. They have the commission expiration date wrong. They have my jurisdiction wrong. So clearly these people aren't from Baltimore. And then, yeah, they blacked out the information. So I don't know what they were trying to do here. Maybe get some fraudulent money for school. This is still an open, active case. So that's all the information that I have for it. I'm hoping I get called into court so I can be my own case study. But we'll see. Scenario number 3. An escrow officer had a prospective client come into their office. This isn't my personal story, but it is a story that was shared with me. And they had a deed. Haven't we already talked about that today? Don't y'all love deeds now? That supposedly had their notary signature and stamp on it. Only thing is, it wasn't that particular escrow officer that actually notarized that particular document. The document in question was a copy, and it did not appear to have been recorded with the file, and it also appeared to have been a part of paperwork for a bankruptcy. So what do you think might have happened here? Do you think somebody is piecing papers together, or do you think somebody's creating fake files? What do you think might have went on here? There's a lot of fake files being created, yes. Scenario number 4. One of my students called me and said that they had to sign an affidavit because their notarization got questioned in court. It was for a holographic will. How many of us have a will prepared or have had conversations about having wills prepared? Okay. Oh, okay. A good group. Nice. So if you didn't know, usually a will is prepared either by an attorney, or they have so many different services that you can use online now to create your own will. A holographic will is a handwritten will, so it's less common. But basically what happened was she attached a loose certificate. So now in the state of Maryland, we can attach a loose certificate to a document. What that means is a piece of paper that has writing on it but doesn't have any notarial wording or a notarial certificate where it specifically states that a notarization is required from a notary public, you are allowed to attach a loose certificate. That loose certificate is what is going to have the notarial wording on there to make that document an official document. So as the notary, she stamped her loose certificate, she attached it to the will. However, somehow it got separated. So now they're questioning if she actually did it, if he was in his right mind when he did it, because now the family is fighting over the estate. Scenario number 5. Y'all see this pretty picture here? It's colorful, right? You see it has foreign language on here. Look like it might be some Hindu or something. Does this look like an American document to you? No. What are some red flags? I don't know how clear it is for y'all to see it, but it's more pictures. So let me go through my picture slideshow with you. What are some things that might stand out? It has all the right wording. Let's see, it says, and whereas it has the address, now therefore, it has some initials down here on the bottom. So somebody did this, right? It looks like it's for a plot, something to deal with a property. outside the country, in India, to be exact. The country of India, over in the Middle East, on that side of the continent somewhere. If you didn't ever take a geography class, it's over there somewhere, really far away. Okay? Oh, and they needed witnesses. How many witnesses did they need? 2 witnesses and an attorney. You see that, right? Let me make sure you see it. Witness number 1, witness number 2, attorney. Somebody wrote here notary. And whose name is on that stamp? Mine. The Secretary of State actually just called me about this like a week or 2 ago because guess what? Somebody filed a complaint against me. So the Secretary of State was like, they filed a complaint against Michol. And he called me and he was like, well, we have to do an investigation. I'm like, okay, what's up? Because we talk all the time. So somebody filed a complaint about me because they were like, I don't know a Michol. I never met a Michol. But this document is from 2021. What year are we in? So somebody back in 2020, I saved the best for last. Pictures and fingerprints. So somebody, somewhere, I guess, was pretending to be me. I'm popular, y'all. I didn't know I was so popular. Because if you're paying attention, this is technically 3 fraudulent counterfeit notarizations that I'm personally aware of, using 2 counterfeit notary stamps that I'm personally aware of. Oh, let me go back to the previous slide. You see this right here? What color is this stamp? Red. What color are y'all notary stamps? Red. Okay. Has anybody ever been to India? No. Okay. So please explain to me, rhetorical question, how you perpetrate a whole fraud to get the notarization done, have all the paperwork filled out, have not 1, but 2 witnesses and an attorney and pictures, because it's 3 people, and thumbprints, and you have a fraudulent notary, y'all. So I'm sure this must have been a guy, because if you look at this signature, that's why I got my picture all over the place now, because people that don't know me, they think I'm just a guy named Michael. I used to correct them, but I don't correct them anymore. I just be like, and then when I pull up, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's me. So this is my story. These are real life events. How many of you have ever received any type of notification that your information was used to do fraudulent notarizations? Oh, I'm the only one. So you're getting it real raw and uncut. Mark, 50 years. This never happened to you? Jacqueline, 20 years. This never happened to you? Lynn, over 2 decades. This never happened to you? Ooh. Okay. So yeah. Okay.
Not to my knowledge, let's put it that way.
All right. So yeah, I'm internationally known in Canada, in India, but depending on who you ask, it might not be in a good way. So I share this to say you can do everything correct that we talked about today. I have no idea how these people got my information. And then this is from 2 years ago. So imagine how many more deed plots in India they have lost. Because let's be politically and culturally correct. India is a country rich in soil and rich in oil. So if they get money, I mean, realistically speaking, where's my cut? Okay. I'm just saying. All right. So let's go on. Now imagine, these are my stories, but how is it making you feel hearing my stories? If you got any of these calls, how would you feel? How are some of y'all feeling? Are you feeling violated? Because I felt violated. I'm like, why me? But as a teacher, why not me? Because how many of y'all ever took a notary class and heard them saying, well, these are my actual, true, real life stories that happened? So I get to be my own case study. So what I'm giving you is not fluff. It's the real that people don't like to talk about. So for my session today, I'm not actually going to teach you anything about Maryland. We're going to talk a little bit about Maryland. It might be included in there. What I'm going to teach you about, because we already know record keeping is important, it's what keeps you out of trouble. I'm going to talk about the record keeping rules for some of the other states. Because as I was researching to put this together, I had a lot of what the fraud, you can replace the last word if you want to, moments. Okay? All right, so let me preface this by saying the purpose of notarization is to prevent fraud and forgery. Part of the reason why I created this program for today is because secretaries of state, this is what they want us to do as notaries. But how many of you have ever actually seen a notary fraud training class specific for notaries? I researched. If you don't know me, even if you do know me, how many of y'all was I texting 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock this morning? Because I was up, okay? I ain't getting no sleep. I do a lot of research putting this together, and there's none. This event was the only one that was coming up. They have lots of other fraud conferences, but they don't have any specifically catered to notaries. So I'm just going to run through this real quick because our keynote speaker is here, and I want to hear what he has to say because he's going to be talking about document fraud and forgery, which is the next important thing outside of the examples that I just showed you, because you see they forged my signatures, right? So some states don't have any journal requirements. Mark talked about the importance of keeping a journal. Jacqueline talked about how you can use your electronic journal if you're doing remote online notarizations. These states don't have any journal requirements at all. So imagine if you get questioned for having a notarization or for a notarization that was done in your name that you didn't actually do, how are you going to defend yourself? Okay? So Minnesota, North Dakota, Indiana, Washington State, New York, Michigan, Connecticut, Georgia, Idaho, Vermont, West Virginia. How many of you have traveled to any of these states? Imagine if you had to get a notarization done in any of these states. If it was for a deed, if it was for a power of attorney, especially if it was for a power of attorney, because we know power of attorneys are serious, but we ain't covering that today. And the notary didn't properly record your stuff. Would you look at them like, are you doing it correctly or what are you doing? Because you don't know that what they're doing is correct, but it may look completely wrong to you. I won't get into the types of notary stamps because we all know you have the ink stamp, you have the digital stamp, and you have your embosser. I won't get into remote online notarization, just in the essence of time. I can send these slides to you if you want, or I'll just do that out because a lot of people have been asking me for the presentations. I'll just send it to everybody. So some notary stamp dues. This is important. You want to always use your seal on the same page as your signature. If you don't know, seal is on the document just as a placeholder, and it tells you where to put your notary stamp. You want to make sure the impression of your seal is clear and legible. You want to ensure that your seal is current and valid. That means not expired. Because, pay attention, we're going to get into what some of these penalties are. And they have penalties if you're using an expired stamp. And the reason why I emphasize that is because I have repeat customers. I sent out a notary that I trusted to go notarize something for one of my repeat customers. And my customer told me that they notarized the stamp with an expired, they notarized the document with an expired stamp, and it was upside down. So if it's upside down, that's more okay as opposed to not okay. But with it being expired, that could be a problem. All right, so some notary stamp don'ts. Don't use your stamp on a blank piece of paper or an incomplete document. Don't use an expired stamp. Don't allow others to use your stamp. Wait, oh, I gotta take that out because this is wrong, y'all. Nobody should be using your stamp at all, even with your permission. Oh, the reason why that's also important to stress is if you don't know me, you might think I have a unisex name. They have people who actually have unisex names, guys named Shannon or Leslie or Kim, or girls named Ken. And they're letting other people go out and pretend to be them and doing notarizations, signing their name. And it's not actually them. So that's important to know too. Like how Miss Sherry was saying, verify the identity. Sometimes the signers want to say, how do I know you are who you say you are as a notary? I wear a badge. I keep it professional. Don't use your notary seal to notarize documents outside of your authorized jurisdiction. For those of you that may have questions, this always comes up. It's okay for you to notarize documents from out of state. You just can't go out of the state to do that notarization. This also is a slide that I want to address. Some interesting notary stamp laws. So Arizona notaries have to have dark ink. Arkansas notaries, the seal has to be in blue ink or black ink. Hawaii notaries are required to have a circular stamp. Louisiana notaries don't have to use a stamp. Also, if you didn't know, Louisiana notaries have a lifetime commission. They're what you call civil law notaries, but we won't get into that today. Just look it up. Nevada allows non-residents to be notaries. I'm sure they have specific requirements and regulations that they have to follow. This one for New York, I believe they did just change it, or it's changing within their legislation for this year. Prior, they were not required to use a seal or a journal. They were a notary. They didn't have to use a notary journal or a notary stamp. So how are you really getting something notarized? What are they tracking? North Dakota, prior to purchasing a notary stamp, I think this one is a good law. They have to show proof that they're actually a notary and get a specific authorization in order to buy that notary stamp. How do you think notary fraud will go down if all states required this? Mark, maybe that's something you could talk to the what's it called? NAPS about for the next conference. Tennessee, the stamp must be imprinted in some color, but not black or yellow. These are real laws, y'all. I spent hours looking at this. I'm not making it up. How many states we got? 50? I don't know anymore. These are real laws, okay? I'm not saying this just to be funny. I just pulled the ones that I thought was funny out. Utah, notary stamps have to be purple. Wisconsin, you can use your initials or a shortened first name if you wish, but you must use your current last name. And then in Wyoming, your county of residence cannot be included on your stamp. This is important because in Maryland notaries have to include their county that they received their commission in on their notary stamp. So what do you think about some of these laws? Are they just interesting to me, or is any of them interesting to y'all?
I'm trying to figure out the yellow. Purple. Yeah.
All right, so I won't go into this, but this is how you should properly record a journal entry. Make sure you have your date. Make sure you have the type of notarial act. Make sure you have the name of your document. Make sure you have the printed name and signature of the signer or anybody that's a party to that particular transaction. Mark mentioned how important it was to include your fee if you have a fee on there. Some journals have a space for you to put a note. What type of notes do you think you should put in your notary journal? Have any of you ever had to write any notes in your journal?
I've written notes to specific issues, such as someone who has come to me with a request for a notary, and they say something really crazy to me, like, "Oh, I can only write with my left hand because right now I write on
So some things that you may want to write in your journal, if you have a journal that has a space for notes. If you have multiple names on a document and you only have one signer there, that's definitely something that you want to notate in your journal. If anything suspicious about that transaction goes on, I always say go with your gut. Go with your woman's intuition. Guys, I don't know what you have, gut instincts. If something is telling you something is off about that particular situation or transaction, that may be something that you want to write in your note. If you go to an appointment and for whatever reason you refuse to do that notarization, or it's a valid reason that you have to cancel, let's say the person wasn't aware of what it is that they're signing. That's the number one reason you shouldn't complete a notarization, because you as a notary can't force anybody to sign anything. Contrary to what some consumers may believe, that's not your job. Don't do it. All right, and then this I thought was also interesting. These are the different time frames that some states require notaries to keep a journal for. So it ranges from 1 year to a lifetime. What would you do if you had to keep a notary journal for a lifetime? But also, let me point out that's specific to Louisiana, because Louisiana notaries have lifetime commissions. In the state of Maryland, our commission is only good for 4 years, but we do have to keep our journals for 10 years. And the Secretary of State does not have any type of repository for you to turn it in to them. So it's your responsibility to keep track of your journal. If you're no longer a notary, if you're living in DC, you can resign your commission. If you're living in Maryland or Virginia, you just let your commission expire and you don't renew it. Some states you are responsible for turning in your logbook. If you have a deceased notary, their records have to be kept as well. Who can request a copy of your journal entry? Your employer, if you're doing journal entries for work. But remember, if you're doing notarizations for work, your journal is still your property. So even if they want a copy of the records that you have in your journal, once you leave your job, that journal comes with you. They can make photocopies. An authorized person, such as law enforcement, may ask for a copy of your journal. Mark mentioned briefly about fines. I'm going to get a little bit more into that. So these are just a few states. Ohio, the law specifically states that an individual who performs a notarial act while knowing that their commission is expired may be fined up to $500 and also be ineligible for reappointment as a notary public. If a notary public certifies to an affidavit without first administering an oath or an affirmation, this means if you're doing an oath for someone, they have to take an oath, which is a sworn statement, and you don't have them do a verbal declaration, you can have your commission revoked, be fined $100, or imprisoned for up to 30 days. Imagine going to jail because you didn't have someone. You know how you watch the court shows and they stand up there and raise their hands and say, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Imagine going to jail for 30 days because you didn't have somebody to do that as you're completing a notarization for them. These are real laws, y'all. You can look them up for yourself. Michigan, notaries can face a civil penalty of up to $1,000 for false advertising. We talk about that a lot. Mark talked about the notary that got caught up because they were overcharging. I have a whole math lesson in my class, okay? Math wasn't my strong subject. It's not a lot of people's strong subject, but one thing you're going to know how to do in my class is calculate your fees if you don't learn nothing else. Failure to administer an oath, engage in the unauthorized practice of law, fail to maintain good moral character. So some of them notaries that's really out here scamming people, if they were living in Michigan, they can be fined for that. If your commission is revoked, you can't reapply for up to 5 years. If you are in prison, you can't reapply for at least 10 years. Fines not paid up to 6 months can go to collections. If you're doing notarizations after your commission is revoked, because some people either just don't pay attention or just don't care, you can catch a felony charge up to 5 years in prison. A felony charge can mess your whole life up. And you can get a $3,000 fine. Real estate documents, how much stuff we talk about with real estate today? A notary misconduct, you can get a fine up to $5,000 and 1 year, a misdemeanor charge, and possibly up to 4 years with the felony charge if you're out here and you're notarizing real estate documents improperly. Massachusetts, a person who acts as a notary after their commission expires can be fined $100 to $500. Virginia, non-attorneys, it talks about they have a civil penalty of also $500. A notary can be sued by a signer in civil court. We live in a society where people like to sue. I mentioned earlier, Leanne was talking about it. People like to play the blame game. Nobody wants any accountability. Make sure you keep good records and you take accountability for whatever you do as a notary. If somebody makes you aware that you did something and it was messed up, just fix it. It's easier for you to take accountability and fix it than have to face any of these repercussions for something that was not that big of a deal. Not to say it's not important, but you get what I mean. Litigation can get messy. Nobody wants to go to court. You want to gain insights? We talked about you can file complaints, you can get reprimanded. Your employer, if you're doing it for work, your employer can be held liable if you are doing improper notarizations. We talked about the bank. Full disclosure, y'all, I work at Bank of America, okay? I see the mistakes. I sometimes get into back and forths with management in regards to if notarizations are done correctly or not. But I can't just be like, I'm a trainer for the state, because we'll just leave that at that. All right, so thumbprints came up. California does require them for real estate transactions. Texas prohibits them. Maryland is optional. DC is optional. Is it required in DC? No. Yeah, okay. And then this can also help you catch an imposter, because I wonder if they took a thumbprint for any of the notarizations for my stories that I shared earlier. All right, and then some best practices for record keeping. Don't share your journal with anyone. Don't use whiteout for any corrections. And you don't need to keep copies of the documents that you notarize. Unless you work in a place and that's a requirement as part of your role. But thank you. That's my story. And I hope you learned something about proper record keeping today. And we can certainly have a conversation. Y'all know how to reach me. Send me a DM. Go on the website. Send me an email. Send me a contact page. If you have any issues that you don't want to talk about in front of everybody, I would rather help you figure it out while you're going through it than have to CYA after the fact. Everybody know what CYA means, right? Okay. All right. Thank you all. Our keynote is here.